Good evening. Not wanting to interrupt dessert, because having dessert is what the Concord Coalition is all about, but now that everybody's eaten their vegetables. But I want to thank you all once again for being here this evening. It's a very special evening for the Concord Coalition as we recognize Pete Peterson and his many contributions to the cause of fiscal responsibility over the years. As many of you know, if it wasn't for Pete, we wouldn't be standing here. We wouldn't be sitting here in this room tonight because Pete Peterson really founded the Concord Coalition. The Concord Coalition was Pete's idea. Nearly a quarter of a century ago, he brought together a Democrat, Paul Tsongas, and a Republican, Warren Rudman, and the three of them formed the Concord Coalition. Pete served for many years as the Concord Coalition's president, and thanks to his vision, hard work, and devotion to the cause, we remain an effective and a nonpartisan advocate for fiscal responsibility and generational responsibility. And surely there needs to be some voice like that in the country. Pete has accomplished many, many other things besides helping to co-found the Concord Coalition. In fact, he's really the embodiment of the American dream. If you think of it, the son of Greek immigrants, Pete became CEO of a Fortune 500 company before the age of 40. Catching the attention of our nation's leaders, he was named Assistant to the President for International Economic Affairs and then U.S. Secretary of Commerce. After leaving government, he co-founded the Blackstone Group, a global leader in alternative investments. He chaired the New York Fed and the Council on Foreign Relations. He's the author of 7 books, including the best-selling and I love the title of this book, Running on Empty, How the Democratic and Republican Parties Are Bankrupting Our Future and What Americans Can Do About It. Not a pithy title, but it really kind of gets at it, you know. It kind of summarizes the problem. Well, of course, he's now chairman of the foundation that bears his name. Pete founded the Peter G. Peterson Foundation to be a nonpartisan organization dedicated to raising awareness about these issues and looking at the long-term challenges and promoting solutions for a better economic future. The foundation is a generous partner in supporting those of us who continue to fight for fiscal responsibility, and it is a leading voice for this issue in its own right. Among the innovations of the Peterson Foundation are the Fiscal Confidence Index, which is a monthly measure of attitudes about long-term debt, college-based programs like the Up to Us program and the Fiscal Internship program, and we all know it's important to get younger people involved in this issue, and of course the newly created Peterson Center on Healthcare, dedicated to making higher quality, more affordable healthcare a reality. And most significantly for our purposes this evening, there is the Ask the Candidates for a Plan initiative that the Peterson Foundation has been running, and I've been seeing ads for that on the morning talk shows and the Sunday talk shows, and I think it's really terrific, and at least somebody is on the air. When those ads run, it's about the only thing you hear about the debt on those shows. So thank you for that. I received a note today, an email from Sam Nunn, and I just wanted to read a portion of it. He said this to Pete, I thank you. Sam Nunn, by the way, on our board is our former co-chair, and he would tell you the 4 years he was the co-chair, the budget was balanced. Happens to be true, but he says, Pete, I thank you for being our inspiring leader and for your great vision for your nation's future. You not only founded the Concord Coalition, you have sustained it, and you have inspired many others to devote time and resources to getting our nation back on a sound fiscal track. From a political perspective, I am not sure when our nation will, quote, sober up fiscally, quote unquote, but when we do, the foundation that you have laid with your time, your resources, and your immense credibility will be the solid rock on which we must build our fiscal future. Concord has chosen wisely in honoring you tonight, Pete Peterson, as our Economic Patriot of the Year. But we think of you as our Economic Patriot every year, and tonight that makes it official. And it's kind of interesting that Sam Nunn should send me that, because I was going to read a quote from Warren Rudman, quoting something that he said to me over the phone a couple of years ago, and it actually sounded quite similar. He was telling me that a reporter had called him and asked him why Pete keeps doing all this stuff. Why does he keep talking about the long-term budget, and why does he found a foundation and keep working with the Concord Coalition and other organizations? And Rudman said, and I'm not going to do my Rudman imitation, which is pretty good, but I'm not going to do it. Rudman said, I told him it's simple. Pete is a patriot. He truly believes in this country and the promise it holds for its citizens, and he wants to make sure that it's going to be there for future generations. So you see, Pete, long before tonight, your fellow Concord Coalition board members and the Concord Coalition staff have always understood that you are an economic patriot. And that's why it is indeed a very good, high pleasure and honor for me tonight, on behalf of the Concord Coalition and our many supporters around the country, to present you with our 2016 Paul E. Tsongas Economic Patriot Award.
Thank you, Bob. Even with my ego, I couldn't believe that introduction. I've tried to think of what I could say tonight. I'm sitting next to my dear friend, Paul Volcker. He keeps arguing I'm much older than he is. Actually, it's about 3 months. But when you get to be 90 the way I am, it's sometimes hard to concentrate for extensive periods of time on issues. So what I thought I'd do is just write 2 or 3 things off the top, as it were, based on my experience of going to awards like this, listening to excessive verbiage like you just heard, and drawing from those experiences some things you really think, not the result of excess verbiage. So I was trying to write down just a few things that occurred to me that I have learned from my association with groups like this. One of them is, I call the brevity principle. I have been to many of these. I have yet to hear one where any number of the audience say, I think that was about twice too long. And I think if when we make presentations, we could somehow have the discipline to ask, is this really necessary? Is this really new? Or is it something intended for some other purpose? I want to say a few words about Paul Tsongas and Warren Rudman. It was an extraordinary day when I called the two of them, and both prestigious, senior, thoughtful senators on the other end of the phone. And I'm talking to them about joining a new organization. And they had enough inherent interest in the subject of fiscal responsibility that they accepted on the phone. And I've never been more flattered in my life for an organization with which I was associated. As far as the work of this institution, I have been thinking a bit about how to relate this to what I'm doing with my life. And I've decided that long-term debt is unsustainable, it's unprecedented, it's unaddressed, and it's unsustainable. And that this debt is going to turn out to be a transcendent threat to the future of this country. And we're preoccupied, as usual, with the short term. But even though it is perfectly obvious, reading every CBO report and the like, that the risks are serious of the future of this country if we don't get some attention on this. So that's why when I made a great deal more money a few years ago than I deserved, I asked myself, what would I most like to have done in my life? And I decided that doing something about this problem would be immensely satisfying. So I've done it and put in most of my money in it. And I had a huge blessing. The gentleman sitting to my right is my son, Michael, brilliant, able, who was terribly interested also in this subject. And he's joined our foundation. And I can't tell you how satisfying it is to, on the one hand, watch your net worth disappear at a rapid rate. But on the other hand, to see some important work going on this transcendent threat that I talked about, our long-term debt. So that's one of the reasons I continue to support the Concord Coalition, why I thank you, not just for this award, but for supporting this fine group of people. Thank you.